What does it take to flip a congressional seat in Indiana? What does it take to hold one? Or maybe most importantly, who are the people willing to step up and fight for Hoosier families in Washington? This is Turn Left, Running for Congress 2026. We're sitting down with the Indiana Democratic candidates running for Congress in the 2026 primary. This is your chance to hear directly from the people who want to represent you, not just their talking points, but their stories, their values, and their vision for Indiana's future. All right. Indiana's own Dana Black turned left, running for Congress 2026. I am so excited. You know what? One of the hottest races, I think, in Indiana is the 5th Congressional District. That one is loaded with some amazing talent. And I have one of those candidates right here with me today, Phil Goss. Phil, how you doing today?
Hey, happy 420 to you. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know what, Phil? I'm not a consumer of such products. I tried it as a kid and it just never worked out for me. Not a kid, but I mean like an 18, 20-year-old. And it just never was my vice.
Well, I'm not a consumer either, but it is a question of public health because you know what? It's a major, major killer of young people, and not only young people in Indiana because it's unregulated. So it's a safety thing more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, congratulations for stepping up again to run for office. This is not your first go round. First of all, tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Okay, so my name is Phil Goss. I am a son of Indiana. I grew up in Evansville. My dad was born and grew up in Fort Wayne, where I now run the family farm. Somewhere between Evansville and Fort Wayne, I went to college at Wabash College in Crawfordsville, and I got an MBA in Europe and was in the PhD program at the Kelley School of Business in business economics and public policy. Didn't finish that because I ended up taking a position with the State Department where I was in consular services. That was a lot of fun, and I learned an awful lot about immigration while I was doing that. I've been in Poland for much of the last 35 years, not exclusively. I also lived in Saudi Arabia for a short time when I was working with Boeing. But in Poland for the last 12 or 13 years, I forget, I've been co-president, vice president of the 4th largest brewery in the country.
Wow.
And what that means is I'm dealing with commodities prices. I'm an institutional buyer of grain and other agricultural products and services. I'm dealing with all kinds of foreign trade matters, tariffs and whatnot. So it gives me a front row experience on international trade with many, many different countries.
So, okay, one of the things I love when I see candidates who run for a second time, I ran once and was like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to go do something else. What made you want to come back and do it again?
Oh, I'm just a glutton for punishment. Dana, I really enjoy policy. I really enjoy finding solutions, and I really enjoy identifying the root causes of a problem rather than trying to address the symptoms of a problem, which I see so many other people doing. For me, it's about finding the causes and addressing the causes and really helping our country on any of a variety of different topics. And I think I've got the right experience and preparation to do that on any of a variety of topics.
Well, one of the things that excites me about your profile is that you do have extensive international experience. Talk about how living in other places could help shape how you write policies that impact Hoosiers and the nation.
Well, it certainly teaches us, those of us who live abroad, it teaches us what the United States is and is not, because once you leave, then you can see it a little more directly. Mm-hmm. So I'll specifically say this. When I, for example, moved to Poland in 1991, one of the first things that happened was that I lost weight.
Wow.
Why did I lose weight? Because our food supply in the U.S. is poisoned. It's poisoned with all kinds of crazy additives and things that are not legal in most of the rest of the world. Why are they legal here? Well, we have the best government money has bought. That's why.
Yeah, you're right about that. I noticed when I went to Thailand, I had a chance to go to Thailand this year, first time, and the food just was different. It tasted different. It was cleaner. And I really enjoyed myself in those 2 weeks. I didn't even gain a pound for as much food as I was eating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I've been all over the world, whether it was Africa, North Africa, West Africa. I was just in Gambia and Senegal in January. Where else have I been? Egypt, Saudi Arabia, throughout all of Europe. And South America. I went to Colombia a year ago, and no matter where I go, the food is the quality of the ingredients and the quality of the things that might even carry the same brand name that we have in the US is just different because they don't allow certain things, which we do allow in the US. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate because we don't have to be this way.
Yeah. Would you advocate for the the Food and Drug Administration doing something different with all those chemicals? And I mean, do you have a plan to even address something like that if you were to win this election?
Absolutely. Other people have figured it out, and we have simply sold our people down the river, whether it's food, whether it's, it could be fast moving consumer goods, those types of products like your shampoo, same name in this country as in Europe, different product. Yeah. So there's a variety of things that we can and should do in this country to stop big corporations from poisoning us, whether it be through products we use, things we eat, ingredients in the things we eat.
Yeah, I always found it interesting. It was the Food and Drug Administration. So once they feed you, they're going to have to give you some drugs to counteract the food you just ate. Anyway, so you mentioned being on the continent of Africa. We are seeing now where China and some other international countries are starting to invest in African nations and helping them with their infrastructure and things of that nature. Now, full disclosure, we already know that colonizers kind of made the situation the way it was. But when you see the United States not interacting with the opportunities that are on the continent, do you think we're falling behind in the world?
Yes, and I can even point to some specific examples. Sure. Yes, you're right about Africa. I think that Africa has the unfortunate, and if we're talking about China specifically, mm-hmm. they're giving all kinds of credit, but there's no free lunch. So right. China is expecting some kind of cooperation, and possibly we could even call it an indentured servitude on the part of these beneficiary countries down the line. In Central America, we've seen this in Nicaragua, where they're trying to create some type of alternate to the Panama Canal, using a lake in Nicaragua and so forth, and trying to create rail and road links to link the Gulf of Mexico, which is what I still call it, mm-hmm. or the Atlantic side and the Pacific side, however we choose to call it. In any case, there are a number of examples that we've seen with China, I'm sure, and Russia has been doing the same. They've got airplanes flying around, handling gold they're extracting out of Africa to pay for the things that they want in their various actions around the world, let's call them.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so important that our congressional leaders have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to international affairs. You also mentioned that you bought and sold commodities. Talk about how you see this current administration and the tariffs that they're applying, how they're harming Americans, and what would you like to see us do differently?
Okay, so it's less about me as an international buyer of commodities. I'm also a farmer in Fort Wayne. Right. I also produce things. And of course, that goes on to the market as a commodity. Where are the problems in the United States as a result of the tariffs? Well, a few things, because we have agricultural inputs. There's far more than just diesel fuel and seed. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of other components we use, fertilizer and so forth. Well, let's talk about potash. Potash comes from 3 countries, Canada, Belarus, and Russia. Well, what could possibly go wrong?
What is potash? I don't know what that is.
It's something we add to the soil for fertilizing.
Okay. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So when we raise prices through these tariffs, these taxes on the farmers, well, you're raising the prices downstream for the American consumer. So that's one of the problems. More expensive farming inputs, more expensive farming outputs, mm-hmm. more expensive products on your grocery shelves.
Wow, I feel like a lot of our Hoosier farmers bought into the nonsense, and now they are suffering exponentially. But I also see the United States this administration has really screwed the pooch when it comes to international relations. We've pissed off so many of our allies. What are some of the things you would like to see us do to repair those relationships?
We need to reaffirm our commitment to NATO. We need not to invade Greenland. That's kind of obvious, right?
Right.
Now, there is a conflict that has been under most people's radar for much of the last 20 plus years, and that is the grab for mineral rights under the Arctic Ocean. There are a number of countries which have been vying for this: Russia, Norway, Denmark, Canada, and the United States specifically. And so the question has been about mineral rights now that we don't have polar ice caps like we used to. And that's really what's driving some of the conflict that you see. But it's not something most people would necessarily know about.
Right, right. And see, once the polar caps melt away, it will expose all those natural resources. But it's a double-edged sword, because if we go after those resources, we're going to continue to have more climate change, right?
Correct. But, it may be too late to put that genie back in that bottle.
Yeah. All right. We spent a little bit of time talking about international stuff, and I appreciate, again, your knowledge of international affairs, but there's a lot of domestic stuff that's happening. Talk about like 3 things that you are seeing on the home front that you would like for us to address, and what you would like to do about it when you win this election.
I don't think we can fix any of our problems until we get money out of politics. So we must end Citizens United if we expect any progress anywhere else.
Wow.
That's one. Second, I might say that we should raise our minimum wage and peg it to inflation, just the way we do with Social Security. Okay. That way, we never have to revisit the question again. We could also add to that some type of universal basic income or guaranteed minimum income provisions, which mean that even if your minimum wage is inadequate, you're going to still be taken care of. There are different ways to do that through subsidies, stipends, or negative income taxes. We can get into the weeds on that later, but the principle remains the same.
I love those. And those are really progressive ideas. A lot of people probably wouldn't believe someone who's traveled internationally, worked on a PhD, is as progressive, and those ideas are as progressive. What helped shape the way you see governing in the United States?
I've seen, when I went to Poland, I participated in an economy which was just freshly out from under the Soviet yoke. And indeed, it was still Soviet occupied when I got there. It wasn't until August, I got there in January of 91. It wasn't until August of 91 that we saw the situation with Yeltsin and in Moscow. We were all kind of nervous still because we didn't know if there wouldn't be a reassertion of dominance in what had been the Warsaw Pact. These were very crazy days, I remember. So, and because we didn't know if we wouldn't just be leaving on the next flight out. We just didn't know. But having had the privilege of a front row seat to the de-Sovietization, let's call it, of the Polish economy from 1991 until today, that is nothing short of a miracle. We've seen what works from supporting education, from supporting trade, from supporting reindustrialization, because they had an industrial base, but they had to reinvent it. And the entire economy, all while going through growing pains and technological change that was just dizzying. The 90s, from a Soviet economy to ultimately what became the internet economy, it was just a heady time to be in a place which had such a great change, such a larger change than what we might have experienced in the US during that same amount of time. But having participated in the market reforms and in the structural reforms of that economy, it certainly gave me an appreciation for what does and doesn't work on a large scale. And now today, Poland just entered the G20, nothing short of a miracle.
That is fascinating. I feel like I can listen to you tell me stories about watching economies grow, but I don't know if our listeners want to do that, because that'd be too much time. We also have a healthcare crisis in the United States. Talk about how you would like for us to address the affordability and healthcare crisis that Americans face right now.
Well, in order to understand the crisis, we have to understand why we have it. A lot of people say, let's throw more money at it. Well, that might be the right now answer, but it probably isn't the right answer, meaning a long-term right answer. It won't be a solution. Sure, we can fund Medicare for all. Yeah, great. But what does that do to change the underlying causes of the problem? The sad answer is nothing. What we can do to change the underlying cause of the problem is to revisit a 1973 law called the HMO Act. Are you familiar with it?
I am not. Well, I know what an HMO is, but I don't remember the act.
Well, it's a thing that Nixon put in place that his buddy Permanente of Kaiser Permanente Health designed. And what it did was it changed the way medicine was practiced in this country because it gave healthcare HMO administrators more power over the decision-making process. And it put the administrator into the doctor-patient relationship.
Right.
making decisions which weren't necessarily beneficial to the patient because it looked at bottom lines more than it looked at patient outcomes. So it transactionalized medicine. Now, most other countries, in fact, all other countries, have something called outcome-based medicine. And that is the real solution, because what it does is it says your patient outcome, your outcome, my outcome, is what is the most important thing. It accomplishes that by making that the economic signal that medical care and healthcare respond to. It accomplishes that from a number of different strategies. But certainly what it does is it takes profit motive and takes vertical integration and horizontal integration out of the equation. It removes the conflicts of interest that you'll often see when medical decisions are being made, because you don't have somebody advocating that you do something so that they can make a nickel down the road. They're looking out for your best interests, and we can only do that through, again, we've got to talk about the solution through the FTC. The Federal Trade Commission is there to prevent monopolies and trusts from taking over. And unfortunately, since 1973, that's exactly what has happened in our medical industry in the United States.
Yeah, and I imagine when you couple that with the pharmaceutical companies, I remember when they started advertising on television for these different pills that you made. I mean, it used to be the only way you would know about a medication is that the doctor said you needed to have this medication. So I imagine those marketing schemes and things like that also went into raising the cost of healthcare. Would you? Am I in the right track?
Yes, absolutely, because you've got integration between healthcare providers and pharmaceutical companies, or pharmacies, I should say. So the retail end of it, it's an unholy alliance, because they've got profit everywhere within your transactions, and they're motivated again by profit, not by altruism. Your outcome is secondary to their profit.
Wow, that's scary. Another big issue, especially in the HSC area, Hamilton Southeastern, and some of the places around District 5, public education is a huge conversation. We are seeing public schools being systemically defunded. You see this administration trying to get rid of the Department of Education. Talk about how you view public education and educating our kids for the future.
Actually, I went back to school to get a teacher's certificate in Evansville back in the late 90s. So I actually can speak with some experience on that. My mom was also a teacher, and I watched her being a part of the teachers union. I was part of the teachers union for a short time. And I've seen how public education served us well. And I've seen the changes since then, and what I do not believe serves us well at this point. So first off, let's talk about public education and what it really means. The United States, as did many other places, about 110, 115 years ago, decided education was a public good. What do we mean by that? Our society is better when schooling, at least basic schooling, primary, secondary, is free and open to all. Now, what we've seen in Indiana is where they've tried to take that money, they have taken that money and steered it towards private education, saying, oh, well, the voucher should be good for any school you want to go to. But these private schools are not encumbered with the same obligations that the public schools are when it comes to conforming with the individual plan for any child who might have some kind of special need. So they're putting their thumb on the scales for their own people, and they're taking money and putting it into unaudited accounts, public money, spending it on things which may not be in keeping with the spirit of public education. I'm not against free lunches. I'm absolutely an advocate of student nutrition, and it should be better nutrition than what it is. We should be spending money on children's food because, unfortunately, as you well know, this is the only source of stability in some children's lives. And they need that free lunch, that free breakfast. Otherwise, they may not get anything.
I want to dive a little deeper with something because I feel like you have a different perspective on things. So like when you see the way Indiana is, diverting the funds to private schools, what is your prediction for the future of the Hoosier student as this voucher program continues on? Where do you think we'll end up, or as we roll down this track?
I think what you'll see, unfortunately, is that many, not all, of course, but many public school situations could turn into educational ghettos. And that is absolutely contrary to what we should be striving for, which is a common place where students of all backgrounds can come together and become one society. I am old enough that I remember the days right after public busing came into effect. I don't remember the earliest days of it, but it was only a few years after it started. Now, this was down in Evansville. And one of the things over the perspective of time and maturity that it accomplished was that it certainly integrated our experience out in the farmland where I grew up. It integrated our experience with those of kids from the inner city. And but for that, we would have had no idea who these kids were or what they were like. And it certainly accomplished its goals back in the 70s and early 80s.
Yeah. And so when you're out there talking to folks in rural Indiana and District 5, because District 5 has a little bit of everything, right? It's got rural, urban, very, very suburban. What are folks in the rural Indiana saying to you about, having to do more with less when it comes to public education? Because essentially, a lot of these small towns don't even have private schools.
Well, that would be the case in Tipton, I would say, is that for the most part in Tipton, it's the public school, and that's about it. It's small. It's so small that there's not really much of a market for a private school. But there are, of course, homeschoolers and so forth. And while I appreciate the right to homeschool one's child, I think there ought to be some kind of benchmark testing to make certain that child is actually hitting those mile markers that they should be, those goalposts, as it were, throughout their educational experience at home. When it comes to the larger cities, we've got problems in places, you could fill in the blank in the 5th District, be it Marion, be it Anderson, be it Kokomo, be it Muncie, where you've seen industrial bases leave the city and the resulting problems that have happened. We really have problems with the fabric of the economies in those towns. Now, in some cases, you've got a new thing that's come up since the TV factory went away because we got out of cathode ray tubes, but now we've got an automobile plant or something along those lines. We have a lot of capacity in these cities, and we should be promoting their reindustrialization because we've got all the pieces needed. We've got the right water, the right power, the right gas supplies, the right housing supplies, the right schools. We just need to reindustrialize what have become ultimately vacant industrial capacities. And that's true in so many places throughout Indiana and indeed throughout the United States. So when we aggressively work towards reindustrializing our country, one path towards that is reducing tariffs. When we work towards that, I think we'll see a regrowth in these communities over time. It's going to be slow and it's going to be organic. But then, boom, something happens and you've got a new factory coming into town and suddenly things move very quickly.
Yeah. So and juxtapose that with this idea that we've got to put these data centers. I want to make sure I make this very clear because I think there's a distinction between a data center and an AI data center. We are seeing this desire to dump these big 900 mile whatever data centers in communities without regard to the infrastructure or to the natural resources. What are your thoughts on AI data centers just plopping up all over Indiana?
Well, there are a couple of challenges with an AI data center or a data center. I'm not sure of the distinction between the two, but I think the challenges are the same regardless. And those challenges are twofold. One is power, the other is cooling. Cooling capacity often uses water or some other type of heat transfer, maybe one closed loop system to an open loop system. Point is this, when we're dealing with such large amounts of heat, you've got to dissipate it somehow, so it requires water. Are they using underground aquifers? Are they using surface water? What's the source of their water to which they can dissipate heat? What's the downstream effect? Quite literally, the downstream effect of heating that water, because that's what we're doing. We're taking heat and transferring it from the data center to that surface water. What's it going to do? The answer, I'm not sure, but unless we study it, we don't know. And so maybe we shouldn't be making those steps. Also, we need to make certain we protect underground water aquifer levels and protect those federally. Underground aquifers are enormous, and they're enormously important to what we do. It's part of what caused the Keystone Pipeline to stall in Nebraska, is because that proposed pipeline was going to go across the Ogallala Aquifer, which is one of the largest freshwater aquifers on the planet.
Right.
It's what feeds us. It's what keeps Nebraska making food.
Right.
We need to protect it, not just protect it from potential pipelines, but protect it from overuse. And so the data center is a question that really gets us into underground aquifer protections. It gets us into electricity. We could also mandate, for example, with these data centers, that they implement some type of renewable resources to harvest solar, to harvest wind. They can do that. They just need to be told to do it.
Yeah, I still find it interesting that all of these creators of these massive data centers can't figure out a way not to have us subsidize their power and energy and cooling needs, which is really kind of frustrating. You know, one last question. When you're out there talking to the people, because that's how you run a campaign. You get out there and you talk to the people. What are some of the things that folks are telling you that they want you to work on directly, right, when you win this election?
Well, one of the things we haven't really touched on is immigration, and that's one of the topics that always pops up. As a former consular officer with the United States State Department, I can speak about that authoritatively, especially as it relates to agricultural workers. And the system we have in place now came in 1986 with the Simpson-Mazzoli bill. That put into effect a system which has been designed to fail because it encumbers individual operators, farmers, if you will, with one part of the compliance mechanism. Other countries do it differently, where the only person who has to be in compliance is the migrant laborer. They go and get their paperwork from the consulate. They have a visa that says, yes, this person can work in migrant labor for any farmer. And then they go around and, hey, it's planting season here and planting season over there. It's harvest season here. It's harvest season over there. As long as they are in compliance, that's all that's necessary. It frees up the paperwork from the farmers and makes compliance much easier and much more universal. The problem is us. The problem is we don't have that right mechanism in there. And the inspiration I get is the German model, where they have a visa called Saisonarbeit, which simply a person gets at a consulate and goes to Germany and picks strawberries or whatever it is they're going to do. We can do that in this country, but Congress has to tell the State Department to do it. The State Department can't do it on its own.
But you wouldn't be worried about, because we know what's going to happen. Just like a pipeline is going to fail, a farm system or farm company is going to behave poorly. How would, with that system of making sure the migrant worker is in compliance, how do we hold the places that they work accountable for not mistreating migrant workers?
That's an excellent point. Of course, we can have observers and so forth going around, insofar as that might be effective. And that could be a Department of Agriculture question. It could be a Department of Labor question, maybe both. At the end of the day, people might be treated poorly, but if they have a document in hand which allows them to work for anyone, they can vote with their feet. I take some inspiration from a great book. You may have read it, called The Grapes of Wrath, which talks about a similar kind of issue, but it's the Okies going to California as opposed to, let's say, a Latino coming to the United States. You have a wealth of knowledge. And I think, no matter what happens in the primary, I think that you elevate the conversation in such a way that makes us all think about things just from outside of our comfort zone. So I appreciate you stepping up and running again and then bringing that knowledge to the conversation. Because again, that can only make us stronger and make us better. Tell the people where they can find you. PhilGoss.com. That's our website. We're on the socials at Facebook and Instagram, TikTok. I'm not sure. I don't manage those pages. I personally don't even have Instagram or TikTok. It's just those are platforms I've never been on. Yeah. And do you have any volunteer opportunities that are coming up? Because this is going to be released this week. Yes, we do. We have volunteer opportunities. I would encourage people to log on to our website at philgoss.com and reach out to the information, info at maybe something like that. Okay, yes. I love it. Now, was there any? I said that was the last question, but I always want to ask one more because I like talking to you. I really do. I feel like my brain gets better when we talk. Was there anything that you wanted to say that I didn't ask you about? Yes, I am not for sale. Why not? Well, what you don't know about me is that just over 7 years ago, I flew from Warsaw to Odessa to have an operation that saved my life. And indeed, it gave me a new lease on life. I'm now 100 pounds lighter. I'm much healthier. And thanks to that, I am full of vim and vigor, to speak nicely. Mm-hmm. What it has allowed me to do is to go back to my volunteer opportunities that I used to do back in the 90s, but then had to take a break from. Mm-hmm. I'm a Red Cross Disaster Services volunteer, so people's houses burn down or get destroyed in tornadoes. I'm one of the people who goes out and helps them receive money so they can get themselves back on their feet. I also took the opportunity to volunteer in Ukraine a few times, or at the Polish-Ukrainian border 4 years ago, because I do speak Polish fluently to the native level, and I speak Russian, Ukrainian to a tourist level, I would suggest. I understand it, I can read it, I can speak some of it. So I can certainly take the fight to Victoria Sparks in her language.
Come on, I would love to see that.
Yes. So, but I took the opportunity because, it called on people like me who had the opportunity and time and resources and abilities to go and actually make a difference. And these were chaotic but very heady days. I swear, I never thought I would see Fiddler on the Roof being played out in front of my very eyes, and yet there it was. Thousands of people out in the cold, trying with nothing more than what they could carry, trying to get to the west, to Poland, and points further west so they could avoid that Russian aggression. I later got the privilege of joining a convoy because I once upon a time went to truck driving school. I can drive heavy vehicles. And I was driving a large Finnish fire truck that had been delivered to Warsaw. I delivered it on into Kyiv. It ultimately made its way to Chernobyl to fight forest fires there. So it was about a week of convoys and fixing things, making certain that we could get proper tire service and whatever, and making certain we were in compliance at the border. But it was an amazing experience. 5 heavy vehicles, 20 civilian vehicles, and 50 volunteers plus some management. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience to take equipment in that was necessary to help these people protect their country and do the right thing. We only dealt in non-lethal things because in volunteering and in charity, we never mix the two. So I've always been a non-lethal volunteer or in whatever I've done, right? Yeah. That's just me.
I love just you. And let me tell you, I am 100% understand what it is to lose a whole person that you was carrying around with. I mean, I had bariatric surgery in 2013, 2014, one of them years. And I lost initially 120 pounds, and it just changes your outlook on how you move throughout the world. And so I truly get the fervor and the vigor you have, because I work with people who are 25, 30 years my junior, and they tell me I have all the energy in the world, right? So I applaud that because, I hate when people body shame because people are heavy, or they body shame because I had surgery, or people are taking GLP-1s or whatever. I think whatever helps you get to where you need to be, do it.
I had probably a similar bariatric surgery, and it gets us back to why did you get there? Why did I get there? At the end of the day, it's from the poison in our food supplies, and we cannot and will not be a healthier country unless and until we can correct that upstream problem that everybody is a victim of.
I love it. Phil Goss running in Congressional District 5. Guys, find him, donate to him. His link is right there. I made sure that he has his donate button right there. Thank you so much for joining me on Running for Congress 2026. I wish you all the best. Guys, look for more. Look for more. Turn left, Running for Congress. I got a few more folks signed up, and we're going to bring you as many candidates as we possibly can. I love it, y'all. Holla at y'all next time. Peace.
Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions, executive producer Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by Dorian and 22 from Pixabay.